it can warp the purpose of sex, and it can warp your approach to it. Because when you're going into sex thinking, I need to meet my husband's needs, it really is like checking a box. And you really will start to think of it like, I've got to get the kids to the orthodontist, and I've got to clean the shower, and I've got to meet my husband's needs. It's something you have to do. And so I needed to reframe it as, I want to enter into this space of fun and pleasure with my husband. It's not just about meeting his needs and hoping he meets mine. It's about how can we build this together so it becomes like a sanctuary in our relationship for both of us to go.
Hey mamas, welcome back to the Gather Moms podcast. We are in our series called Gather the Experts, and we definitely feel like we have the expert today for you. It's a topic that we have not covered a ton on the podcast, but honestly, it's one that I think is coming up a lot lately in conversation with moms. And it's probably always been there at the back burner. We just don't talk about it like we should. And we need to normalize this conversation because it does make a huge difference. So today we are welcoming our expert, Juli Slattery, to talk about, Kate.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's just have the conversation.
Let's have it.
So, Juli, welcome.
Hey, so good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we have listened to you personally and have gleaned so much wisdom. Juli, Kate and I also work with teenage girls. And so this is very much a conversation with teenage girls, trying to help them see sex in a positive light and as God's design. And so I have gleaned a lot of wisdom from you just in that regard too. But as we know, those teenage girls grow up and become moms. And I just think a lot changes in your sexual encounter with your husband, especially after having kids. So just to kind of start the conversation, I just want to be able to say the things that we think our moms are thinking today. And so one of the things I know just for me personally is coming from a purity background within the church, that light switch of you're married, you can have sex was a very hard stop transition. I think it can be that for a lot of women. And then I think you expect it to be very easy and fun and natural. And even though it is God designed, it takes some getting used to and some rearranging of schedules and expectations. And so for me, I thought once I have kids, I think you've arrived, right? Like you figured it out, you know what's going on.
Right.
It's going to be so easy. And honestly, the kids is just a whole nother layer of having to navigate that with your spouse. So do you counsel, talk with moms a lot? Do you hear them voice to you? How do I make this work after having kids? We have less time, less opportunity, less energy. What are you hearing from moms?
Oh, all that and above. So I think for most married women, sexuality isn't necessarily easy in their marriage for the reasons you listed and a variety of other reasons, from my husband isn't interested to sex is painful for me, to things like just things in our past that impact us. You mentioned purity culture, but also shame from the past, trauma from the past. So it just feels like a whole big mess. And if you're expecting to go into marriage and just it be like the movies or even like pornography, because a lot of people have grown up with images of sex through pornography, it's nothing like that. And as you mentioned, adding the layer of the exhaustion and the busyness and the lack of privacy with our kids and body image. That's another thing. Like our bodies change after kids. um, I would say it's the rare woman who says, "Oh, we still have a great sex life, and we really don't have to work up at it. It just kind of happens." The vast majority of women are gonna say, "Hey, this is a difficulty, and I'm not sure what to do."
Yeah. And I think that's important to normalize for women and moms, because that's one of those things that we keep hidden is we don't like sit down with our girlfriends and necessarily jump into talking about our sex life. I mean, Kate and I have been friends for 17 years, but we don't talk about that.
I mean, a handful of times maybe has it come up. You know, it's just not something, but it's so integral to our lives with our spouses. So it is interesting that we don't talk about it more, because we do talk about, how they load the dishwasher or, various other things. And this is such a more important part of our relationship with them.
Yeah, boy, that's true, but how do you even bring it up? And I think a lot of people want to be respectful of their husbands, and they want to maintain some boundaries and privacy. So, yeah, it is difficult to bring up. And when you don't talk about it, you just assume this is working for everybody else, and you don't really know what's normal or how to work through those challenges. And let me just tell you, like, I wasn't always, I guess now people call me like the sex lady or whatever. I wasn't always that. I was also that wife and that mom with three very little boys who, frankly, tried to avoid sex all the time, and didn't enjoy it and had a lot of the issues that I've already mentioned. So, yeah, I was as surprised as anybody when I felt like the Lord was calling me into this space. And I've had to learn from my own marriage too. So I know what it feels like to be in that situation.
Well, and that's so reassuring for us because I think you look at people on TV and social media and you think, man, they just have it all together. They just must be having a vibrant sex life. And it's not true, just like it's not true of any of the other issues that women face body image, finances, all those things. But I'm so excited to talk about this today and just to help all of us, including myself, just get some wisdom because I just want to hear from you. How important is a vibrant, intimate sex life with your spouse, especially post kids?
Yeah, I think some of it is even when you use the adjective like a vibrant, intimate sex life, like what does that even mean?
Mhm.
And here's what's important: it's important that you and your husband are working towards sexual intimacy, that you're making this a priority. Now, what does that look like for each couple? It's different. I remember talking to one woman who had several kids, and she and her husband both love sex. And so they made all this time to have sex. Like they even had like rendezvous in hotels during the lunch hour when their kids were at school. I mean, they they would define it differently than the couple for whom, let's say that the woman doesn't really enjoy sex, she doesn't know how to enjoy it, she's exhausted, she's needing to make it a priority. In the average marriage, there might be struggles with pornography, like things like that, that they're not talking about. And so I think it's important to do a reset and say, what is good for your marriage is to be actively working towards building a healthy sex life. Even if you're in a season where that doesn't feel like much fun right now because there are so many barriers in the way. But when you just put it on the back shelf and you say, oh, this is just a headache, I don't have the energy for it, maybe we'll get to it when the kids are out of the house, like that's a bad idea. The research shows that if a couple isn't working on their sex life, if they're not having sex maybe even like once a week, it's going to have a detrimental effect on their marriage. And similarly, the research shows that couples that are actively working on this part of their marriage actually tend to have greater marital satisfaction, not just now, but in the long run. So it's definitely worth investing in.
Well, and I think, again, just wanting to say the things that I think our moms are thinking. Like, I know personally, when I do have sex with my husband, I immediately feel different. I feel a
Yeah.
personal closeness. It feels like your marriage is back on track. Everything is easier to talk about after that encounter. But then when you wait another week or two leading up to that encounter, it almost starts to feel tense again with each
Hmm.
other, getting close, maybe feeling like he wants to, but I'm too tired. How
Yeah.
important is it to voice these things that we're thinking and feeling just so we're having a continual conversation about it?
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk it through. And some of it is the things that I've learned over time that are just even like tools and helping us understand that or talk about it. A few of the things that you just mentioned have science behind them. So, one of the scientific facts that really helped me understand the importance of sex was the hormone oxytocin. And most moms are familiar with oxytocin because you may have even gotten oxytocin when you were induced into labor. Pregnant women, nursing women, women who just have given birth, have like an overabundance of oxytocin because that's God's way of teaching you to bond with your child. It's natural, it's chemical. So that even though your child is waking you up and pregnancy has ruined your body, like you feel so attached to this child, and that's through oxytocin. And in a similar way, oxytocin has a big impact in sex. So most women can get a decent oxytocin boost if they go on a date with their husband, if he rubs her back, if they're just spending time like looking in each other's eyes. But men have like a 500 times boost of oxytocin right after they have sex. And women
Wow.
get a boost too. It's not as profound as men. So when people say, I don't know what it is, but I just feel closer to my spouse, or my husband seems to be more sensitive to me when we're sexual, that's actually science. So even that shows that if you are regularly having sex together, it's giving you not just oxytocin, but dopamine and endorphins and other brain chemicals that cause you to associate your spouse with pleasure, with bonding, with a sense of well-being. And so you've got that element. And I think, again, once you have some of the science behind it, it becomes easier for a couple to talk about it. Like my husband and I, sometimes I'll joke with him because he knows about this now. And I'll be like, I need to get some oxytocin in you. In other words, like, we're not connecting, you're not listening to me. And he'll be like, yeah, let's do that. So I think some of that just, again, even normalizes the process. Let me take a break and get you to respond to that. And then I have something else I'd love to share.
No, I'm admitting it on the podcast, but when we are intimate, I afterwards I'm like, "Hey, could you go take that thing to the garage or put?"
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I do feel like he's way
Yep.
more sensitive and eager to kind of do whatever I need him to do. So I don't want to claim that as a power that women have over their
No,
husbands, but it is. He does seem
it
more sensitive
is.
to me.
Well,
Yeah.
and he'll say to me, "Whatever you want. What do you need
Hmm.
me to do?" Happily, like, and it
Yep.
it does flip a switch for sure.
Yeah. I used to call it being the queen for the day. I'd be like, all right, I get to be queen for a day,
That's so true.
and you don't want to use that manipulatively, but the reality of it is we need our husband's attention. We need his sensitivity, his kindness, especially through those seasons where life is stressful and it can feel like you're being pulled apart. And so it's a good thing. It's a good thing that neurochemically, like God designed us in a way where it gets our attention focused on each other, and his heart becomes more sensitive to our needs and more sensitive to us. He values us more in that time too, like just neurochemically. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. So I'm wondering about, you can identify with moms we have with young kids that are listening. You talked about that you were not necessarily that excited about your sex life, at that time. Could you share with us a little bit about what turned things for you? How did you get into a better place? Because I'm curious too for them, what are
Mhm.
some small steps that they can start to take to get into a better place?
Yeah, there are so many things that made a difference for me. And, I've been on a journey now for a long time of learning and really trying to work on this area of our marriage. And I think one of them was making this a dedicated thing that I was pursuing. And I know that sounds weird, but like there were seasons of our marriage where, sex was important to my husband. And whenever I'd start to feel like he was even joking about it, I just wanted to run the other way. Like I wanted like actually to get changed in the bathroom because I didn't want him to see me get in my PJs and be like, "Ooh, flesh," like, no, I'm so exhausted. So I know what that feels like, but I really became frustrated, but also convicted about I wanted this to be a thriving part of our marriage. I wanted to enjoy it. I just didn't know how, and it was causing tension in our marriage. And so, without telling my husband for about 3 months, I just started to pray about this. And, like, God, I know that I don't enjoy this. I know that, like, it's causing stress in our marriage. Would you help me? Like, would you help me understand this? Would you help me to learn and grow and have a better attitude towards it? That's one of the reasons that I write and speak so much about sex, because there weren't many things when I was writing, when I was asking that prayer, like when I was looking for help. And so now we've created the kind of resources like Bible studies and workbooks and this and the podcasts that we do to help women know, okay, well, how do I grow in this? How do I get God's perspective of this? So that's the first thing, is just really making it a pointed effort. Like anything, if you want to get better at it, you have to be intentional.
Mhm.
I think another thing that has been really helpful for me over time, this is something that you mentioned a few minutes ago. You said, when sex comes up, I almost hesitate towards it, but once I get into it, I enjoy it. And what I've learned over time from sex therapists and experts in the field is that men and women tend to have different kinds of desire. It's not 100%, sometimes it's a mix match. But for the most part, most men, particularly younger men, because of the presence of testosterone, have what is called initiating desire, where they're more likely to be the one who's thinking about sex more often, just out of the blue, initiating it, thinking like, this is what helps me connect to my wife. I love the look of her body. I want sex. Whereas about 70 to 75% of women have a different kind of desire called receptive desire. And receptive desire is the type of desire where you're not thinking about it. But once you start thinking about it and you start engaging in it, foreplay, you're like, why don't we do this more often? Like, now I'm getting into it. Now I actually can enjoy this. And when I started to understand the difference between those two, it really helped me and it helped my husband to realize, like, we're different. And he is going to be the one that more likely than not initiates, but I need time. And so we even came up, I think probably 10 or 15 years ago, like a pattern of talking about sex and initiating that has been a game changer. So, and we still use this today. Like he'll use some kind of code word or something to initiate, and put it on my radar. And then once he does that, I, within the next, say, day, 24 hours, will find the window of time where I'm thinking about it. I'm not distracted. Like, I'm prepared for it. And I'll be like, okay, this is a good time. And I remember when the kids were really little, I would be like, "Hey, honey, like this is a window of time," and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm busy." I'm like, "No, no, no, you don't get it. It's closing. Like this is it. This is the window," and it really helped us communicate, taking into consideration how we're wired differently, and that's been something that has dramatically kind of changed the way we approach sex and has made this whole conversation a lot easier.
That's good.
Well, and I think that was one of the things that was hard for me when I got married is you thought it was like just this spontaneous, it would just
Hmm.
happen. And then I had mentors tell me sometimes you have to just put a date on the calendar and
Yep.
say, this is the date. And it felt so like medical and like that's not romantic or fun. And honestly, it's so much more freeing because it gives me the opportunity to work myself into that place of thinking about it, not having distractions, and being way more engaged in it than I would have been when it was just spontaneous, which just sounds so unromantic, Julie. Why is it like that?
It's not unromantic. Like my mentor, Linda Dillow, who is now in her 80s, like she used to put TS on her calendar every couple days, and it would mean think sex. And so that was another way of her being like, okay, if I don't think about it, I'm not going to be ready for it. So instead of just saying, oh, like Sunday and Wednesdays are our days, which some couples do, she just said, okay, I'm going to put these prompts in my weekly rhythm. And so I think women and couples, like, they find their own system that works, but it's not unromantic. Like, the truth of it is, if you wait until you're both in the mood and it's spontaneous, like, you literally will never have sex,
Mhm.
except for when you go away for your 20th year anniversary. Like, it's just not going to happen. And that's
Yeah.
not romantic. And when you plan sex, however you and your husband fine to do that. It actually lets you be spontaneous and romantic because you have the energy, you can put the forethought into it, you can prepare, you can make sure the kids aren't going to be bothering you, and you can actually enter into a more romantic and pleasurable space than you would if it was always spontaneous.
Yeah, that's good. Can we talk about, because you talked about the initiator and the
Receiver?
receptor?
Yeah,
Receptor?
yeah, initiating desire and responsive desire, but you can use
Responsive.
different terms. Yeah.
So with responsive, one of the things is we know that women need time.
Hmm.
Could we talk about, because I don't think we talk enough about how much time actually a woman typically needs of kind of lead up the foreplay for her to have a climactic experience. Like, what are the
Hmm.
averages on that?
Yeah, boy, it really differs between women. It can be anywhere from 5 minutes to a half an hour. But some of it is thinking about the fact that foreplay has to start before you ever even have sex. And some of that is on the husband to understand, it's how he's treating you, and it's not just, hey, put the kids to bed, let's have sex, but let me help you put them to bed. Like, it's that attitude of caring about you, valuing you, flirting with you, telling you throughout the day that you're beautiful, that sort of thing. But it's also in a woman's own mind. And so if I know that, hey, my husband and I are going to be intimate together tonight, I want to start even in the morning, like thinking about it, preparing for it, planning for it, preparing my heart and mind and even my body so that I'm not like self conscious about how my breath smells, or that I have BO because I haven't showered since yesterday. Maybe putting on a little lipstick. Like, I want to feel like I'm into it and like I'm attractive. And so there's the actual foreplay of the progression of how do we go from doing nothing to climaxing. But then the pre foreplay, which again is really about a mindset and the relational atmosphere in the marriage. And the more a woman can start doing that pre work, and even her husband start doing that pre work, the more that they're going to be entering into a sexual encounter with a running start.
Yeah, that's great.
I think I probably experienced that sometimes in marriage where I feel like he's not doing the pre work. And so
Hmm.
it feels more like it's my responsibility to get past it so that I
Hmm.
can meet his needs and then hope that he becomes more tender and meets my needs. What would you say to a mom that's like, man, it feels like I'm the one having to do all this work because he is not even thinking about it until I finally do have sex with him?
Yeah, so some of it, and that's a reality because our husbands are busy too, but also they don't understand how you're wired. And so some of it is teaching your husband, like teaching him, these are the things that help me get ready for sex. And really making a big deal when he starts to recognize that, and like, hey, like, I love to be intimate tonight, or I'd love to have sex tonight. Why don't I put the kids to bed, or why don't I give them their bath so you can have some time just to relax? And you being like, wow, like that makes a huge difference for me. It really helps me to focus. And even suggesting that, like, I want to be able to get ready. I want to be able to get my mind and my body ready. Would it be okay for you to put the kids to bed tonight so I can get ready? Like, he doesn't know that until you say it. And so teaching him that you're wired differently. Again, men don't get that oxytocin. They don't get that closeness till after sex. So they're thinking, I don't feel close to you until we have sex. But the way you're wired, you can't really enjoy sex until you feel close to him. And so some basic education on the differences between men and women, and you communicating specifically about the kinds of things that help you enter into and enjoy sex. And I think, another trap that I really fell into when I was in that very busy stage of parenting is I kept framing it in terms of, I want to meet his needs. And I don't think that's bad, but I also think it can warp the purpose of sex, and it can warp your approach to it. Because when you're going into sex thinking, I need to meet my husband's needs, it really is like checking a box. And you really will start to think of it like, I've got to get the kids to the orthodontist, and I've got to clean the shower, and I've got to meet my husband's needs. It's something you have to do. And so I needed to reframe it as I want to enter into this space of fun and pleasure with my husband. It's not just about meeting his needs and hoping he meets mine. It's about how can we build this together so it becomes like a sanctuary in our relationship for both of us to go and relax and get away from everything and experiencing pleasure. And you're going to have to teach your husband what that's like for you. Like it may be what really feels relaxing to you is a back rub, or what really feels relaxing to you is cuddling naked for a while. Like teaching him and even discovering for yourself what would sex entail if it were really something that also was a blessing to you and not just about meeting a need for your husband.
That's good.
Yeah, I that's really interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. I guess Julie, it feels a little frustrating. Like, why didn't God make us the same?
That's what I'm thinking the
Yeah.
whole time.
It's just like it would be so much easier if our drives were the same. And I feel like I've had that conversation with my husband where I'm like, I wish I was like you, and I
Yeah.
could just turn it on, and
Mm-hmm.
the wind could
Hmm.
blow, and I'm excited, and I'm ready to go, and here we are. But
Yeah.
that's not how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
in all of this time thinking on this topic, have you gotten any handles on like why would God do this?
I have, like, for a season, that was going to be like my first question I asked God when I got to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what gives? Why did you make us so different? And I really think that there's beauty in the differences in two different ways. First of all, because your differences cause you to pursue different aspects of the relationship, which makes it a fuller relationship. Like generally, the woman's the one who's going to want to talk about sex and communicate and feel touch and love, and the man is going to be more driven towards the activity of sex. And God designed sex not just to be an activity, but to be a journey of intimacy. And so the husband is highlighting this is what we do physically, but a woman's more wired to highlight this is how we connect sexually in our emotions and our spirit and how we go on this journey together. And if you had one of those lacking, your marriage wouldn't be as full. So
Right.
you're teaching each other. But then the other thing that I think was a really profound aha moment for me was realizing that if sex were natural for both of us just to connect, if we had the same everything, we wouldn't have to learn to love to have a great sex life. It would just all be about kind of hedonistic pleasure. Like I'll take what I want, you take what you want. But the fact that we're different means that if you want a great sex life, you're going to have to learn to love each other well. You're going to have to learn to listen and communicate and be sacrificial in different seasons to one another, to give and receive, to negotiate all of this. And now I've been married for 31 years, and I look back on this journey for me and my husband, and it's become so rich because our frustration has caused us to have to go so much deeper in really building a love life, like building sensitivity towards each other and character, to where like the way we love each other sexually is really beautiful. It's not just about the pleasure, it's about the people that we're becoming on the journey.
That's great.
And again, I wish that we could help reframe that idea for all women that are entering into marriage that the work is worth it.
Yeah.
Because I just think too often we get sucked into the culture of everything looks easy on TV
Yeah.
and social media. And then when you
Hmm.
get into the nitty gritty of it, you're like, I must be doing something wrong because it's not easy. But really, you're saying that the hard work of it is the benefit
It
because you're getting
is.
to experience new things about your spouse and God, which it's hard to think about experiencing God in sex. I don't know. That makes me feel a little weird, but I know like He's the one that designed it. But I
Yeah.
just think that's such a good way to reframe for, especially for me myself. the work is worth it. There
Mm.
is beauty on the other side of this frustration and the struggle.
Yeah, like
Well,
one of the metaphors that I sometimes use, and moms will really get this, is to think about sex like Legos. So if you buy a package of Legos and you open it, there's no way you're going to expect to see the cool image on the front of the box, like the spaceship or the Harry Potter castle or whatever. You're going to open it up and you're going to see hundreds of pieces that you're like, oh, this is overwhelming. But if you have kids who play Legos, you know the beauty of Legos that they're actually learning a skill while they're playing. And as the kids grow, they can become better builders and they tear something apart and they rebuild it again and then they use creativity. And if you can start to think of your sex life more like that, it's not a finished product when you open it up, it's an invitation to build. It's an invitation to grow and to learn and to love each other well and to develop memories over the years and to create your own unique chemistry of you and your husband, the intimacy that only you share. And so when you have that perspective, it means that even the hard seasons where things aren't going well are an invitation to build at a deeper level, which ultimately you're left with something that's really beautiful after decades of marriage and that kind of perspective.
that's great. Well, and I think about, when you do come into a marriage, there are all kinds of things that we have to work toward to kind of find your commonality, right? Like I remember we had to work on communication styles early, because
Hmm.
I'm a lever and he's a pouncer. And so it's like I'm like, I need time to process, and he's like, absolutely not. So he's following me around the house as I'm like, closing doors because I'm like, I'm not ready to talk about this.
Yeah.
But we did the work, and now we there's an easy rhythm where we
Hmm.
communicate so well. Even simple things like meals. Like when we first started eating dinners together, he was like, "Where's dessert?" I'm like, "Brother, you eat maybe dessert once a week. This is not something." He's like, "We always had bread and dessert." And I'm like, so there's just
Yeah.
things like that you're working through. We just unfortunately the sex piece is so intimate, and it is about our bodies that we're
Hmm.
just a lot more guarded with it. But I think everybody can look in their marriage and be able to look at a place where, oh, this wasn't working, but we leaned in and we put some effort toward it, and now it's a lot easier. I am
Right.
curious. I'm thinking about the mom who's listening, and she's kind of in a bad spot, Julie. Like, it's
Hmm.
maybe been 2, 3 months since her and her husband have been intimate, and she feels frustrated. And then it probably is causing some issues in their marriage.
Hmm.
And I know that's kind of a tough place to start because you probably want to know, well, what else is going on and things like that.
Right.
But just for that woman that's feeling frustrated, what would be her first step? What could you encourage her with today?
Yeah. I think a few first steps. Number one is to share it with somebody, like a trusted friend. If you're a woman who prays, share it with God like I did, like just asking God for help. But I think another important step is to talk to your husband. And it's important how you talk about sex to your husband because both you and your husband are very sensitive about this, and it can feel like you're failing. It can feel like there's something wrong with you or something wrong with him. And so I might just approach it with, hey, like, I've been just thinking about our marriage and I miss you sexually. Like, I feel like we're at a stage right now. I don't know how we got here where we're just missing each other. And I know that having the baby got in the way or the kids are getting in the way or we're so exhausted. But this is an important part of our marriage. And I think you believe that too. So how can we start to just work on this together? And the reason you would phrase it that way is because you're actually inviting him to share this with you, but you're not blaming. You're not saying, I'm exhausted because you never help, or you're not meeting my sexual needs, or I'm not attracted to you anymore. Like those kinds of statements are not invitational. They actually will cause your husband to go further away. But when you say, as a couple, like, I know we both want something better than what we have now.
Yeah.
And it's normal for things to get in the way of this. How do we as a team actually say this is important and we want to prioritize it? And then see where you go from there. And again, as you mentioned, there might be a particular barrier in the way that you have to address, whether it's physical or relational or emotional or logistical. Or it may just be like, hey, well, we can start by listening to a podcast or reading a book and just kind of getting the right framework for how we even talk about this.
That's great.
That's good. And I do think there's so many more resources out there now that I think couples almost need permission to pursue those resources, because it sometimes feels like I can't read a book about sex or I can't
Yeah.
listen to a podcast. I mean, pornography is so crazy to me that it's so widely accepted and normalized, but yet doing the hard work of becoming intimate with your husband almost feels like, no, you can't tell anybody that. So I think it's good for our moms just to hear, like, yes, you can read a book, you can listen to a podcast, you can seek counseling. Those are all great steps towards a healthy sex life.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, and
And
Julie,
necessary steps.
you've created so many wonderful things. We would love for our moms to be able to hear, how can they connect with what you've created in authentic intimacy, and how can they get your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So my podcast is called Java with Julie, and you can get that on any podcast app that you stream. You can connect with everything we're doing at our website, AuthenticIntimacy.com. And we do have a number of books and resources for women just in your situation, blogs. Like we've got a lot of things that I even wrote back when I was in that stage that you're in. We have a Bible study called Passion Pursuit that you could do alone, but we also have online book studies to do that book. We have a book called God, Sex, and Your Marriage that has either women going through it, like groups of women, or couples going through it. So some of those kinds of resources can just really help you get a biblical perspective and actually have the words to begin to have conversations with your husband around this area.
Listen, I think that this was wonderful for our listeners. I know for Kate and I too, but man, I want our moms listening to know there is such a beautiful part of your marriage that involves sexual intimacy. And it doesn't have to be perfect every time, like the movies make it look. But the moments where you laugh together because it didn't go like it was supposed to
Yeah.
actually can be some of the most bonding experiences that you have. And I know that as moms, we all needed to do that to make kids. But after having kids, there's still more marriage left in your life. And so it's really kind of God to continue to give us this gift of bonding with our husbands. And so getting to hear from you today and just the practical things that you told us was just a wealth of information. Thank you so much.
It's been a joy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Julie. And thanks, moms. We love you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.